Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, this is a weekly program where we come at you, dig underneath the headlines, and talk to you what's really going on here in Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. Generally calling out the establishment capitalist media on its BS. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. Well, as always, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. Lawrence is going to be joining us around 1 o'clock. I have to dig into some important national, international material. Happenings, that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to start. This came across my feed the other day, and it shows what did Donald Trump say? Going after the homegrowns next. It's like, well, we've got some homegrown fascists right here in the state of Michigan. That is to say, this is an article from MLive about how some House Republicans in Michigan are proposing jail time for unpermitted street protests. Excuse me. This is written by Michael Krantz, and it was published on, excuse me, my computer seems to be freezing up a little bit here. It was hold on, everybody. Sorry, technical difficulties. I'll be pulling out the article. But it's essentially an article about how... Okay, there we go. Sorry. Okay. Protesting and marching in the street without a permit in Michigan is currently only a civil infraction. And anybody who's done a lot of street protests in the last few years knows that usually there's not even necessarily a fine, depending on the type of civil infraction it is. House Republicans are pushing to criminalize this act. Next week, the House Judiciary Committee will hear testimony on a Republican bill that, if passed, would make it a misdemeanor for a group of 10 or more people to block or impede traffic on a public roadway. The charge would carry up to 93 days in jail and a fine of up to $5,000. ACLU of Michigan Legislative Director Kyle Zawacki said his organization has grave concerns about the chilling effect the escalated penalties would have on free speech and the right to assemble. The state already has the ability to enforce and regulate this with civil infractions, Zawacki said. The idea of increasing this with a monetary fine and jail time and the criminalization of it into a misdemeanor goes well above something necessary to protect the public interest. All that does is just look to criminalize political speech and assembly, and that's something that we are vehemently opposed to. But Bill's sponsor said, Representative Alicia St. Germain, a Republican from Harrison Township, said the enhanced penalties wouldn't curb free speech, as there are already avenues like getting a permit to legally demonstrate in the street. That reminds me of kind of an old chestnut from, you'll hear this from lots of long-term organizers, even people who aren't particularly, radical. If your protest requires a permit, you are not having a protest, you're having a parade. It means you're not disrupting anything. You are not actually exerting public pressure on anything because it's business as usual. You're just waving some signs around. And that's not to say that certain awareness protests are not valuable in and of themselves, but it is to say that the First Amendment protects that kind of speech, specifically it enshrines the civil right to disrupt if, one chooses to do so. And again, civil disobedience is a thing, but what this is trying to inhibit is it's trying to curb the potential rise of civil disobedience that may come as people start really feeling the heat of the draconian federal government and its authoritarian overreach, as well as the absolute strip mining of our public safety net, which is sure to cause a disruptive protest or two when it really starts hitting people in the pocketbooks. Going forward, the state already has the ability to enforce and require demonstrations to have to file permits and get access to that, Zawacki said. The idea of just increasing weakness, we know that increasing penalties and adding people into the criminal justice system through imprisonment is not going to curb these demonstrations. While impeding or blocking traffic is a civil infraction that carries a fine and no jail time or criminal record, police can already opt to bring misdemeanor charges of disorderly conduct against a person blocking traffic. One of the last times Michigan saw widespread spontaneous demonstrations in the streets was 2020, when people called for justice in the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd and demanded greater accountability. The bill doesn't discriminate by what political message is being conveyed by the demonstrators, St. Germain said, who is one of the Republicans sponsoring the bill. It goes both ways. What if there's a group of, say, Republicans blocking a roadway to a Planned Parenthood clinic? And they go on to say, I don't think that's right either. The intent is not to be partisan or pick on any one party. The intent is to protect drivers that are put into a situation that they were never trained to do. So, one can draw one of two conclusions about this Republican representative. Either they're incredibly naive or, far more likely, they're fully aware that this kind of law will be selectively enforced. We've seen this time and again where, fascists demonstrate, the law is not brought against them, but leftists are prosecuted. A very good local example of that is, again, going back to 2020, when the Chicken Boys / Proud Boys came to march in the street. They beat people up, including yours truly, I should add. It caused a disturbance, vandalism, etc. Several of the counter-protesters were arrested that day. Not a single Proud Boy was arrested. So the idea that this will be just a fair, justice is blind, nonpartisan law is kind of, history does not bear that out. And either this particular representative does not know their history or they are intentionally acting in bad faith. While political demonstrations and protests are the likeliest scenario for unpermitted crowds gathering or marching in the streets, the bill doesn't target those specifically and applies to any scenario. For instance, Detroit has seen large celebratory gatherings or street takeovers shutting down roadways. I could also see this used to say, like, maybe target the quote-unquote X train, which is something that it pops up every once in a while as like this big nuisance. You have a train of cars that go through downtown on the north side. But again, going back to selective enforcement, would that be used for, say, like the Republican, we had like this conservative convoy, primarily in Canada, last year, that faced little to no resistance or consequences from law enforcement. However, would it be used disproportionately against, say, like people of color out in their neighborhoods? I will let you connect the dots on that one. Going on, ahead of nationwide protests against President Donald Trump earlier this year, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis argued that drivers in the state wouldn't be at fault for hitting a protester if the driver was trying to flee after a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you. Going on, I would rather have stiffer penalties in place for the people purposely blocking the freeway than the message just go over them, drive through the crowd, St. Germain said. We don't want that. We never want violence. What a saint, I tell you. Anyway, Zawacki said the goal of the bill is to prevent demonstrations and silence free speech. I think the big thing to remember is that we have these guarantees for free speech, free association, and peaceful assembly, he said, and those rights don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in physical, public spaces. Historically, streets, sidewalks, public highways are these essential venues for protest and discourse. A total of 32 other Republican representatives have co-sponsored St. Germain's bill. Testimony on the bill will be heard during the House Judiciary Committee at 10:30 a.m. Wednesday. So, just to be clear, it's not super likely that this is actually going to pass, but I did want to highlight this particular issue for a couple of important reasons. I think often there's this sort of narrative, and you especially hear this from mainstream Democrats and other liberals, that like, local, your average local, Republican are, at least I'm talking about the politicians, are inherently, good people, and they're not necessarily going along with this stuff. And this is a good example of how, even if that's true, because, you even see in what St. Jerry is saying is they want to seem a little bit more moderate than what more overtly fascist politicians like Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are saying. But they're still doing things that are trying to pass things that are to the benefit of that particular agenda. And whether it's a civil infraction, a misdemeanor, or a felony, or somebody running over your car, are actually all just different degrees of that kind of authoritarianism. And yes, while they might be proposing something maybe a step down from just letting people run you over, it is still an example of how even a lot of these, quote unquote, homegrown conservatives are still towing the line of an increasingly authoritarian political party. Not that we have much love for the Democrats either, but that's kind of where we're at, is trying to punish people for disrupting and exercising their First Amendment rights. Anyway, you can find that article at MLive. It is, again, the headline there: Michigan House Republicans propose jail time for unpermitted street protests. That was published on August 15th, written by Michael Kranz. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back. We're going to pivot a little bit. There's a piece from Truthout I wanted to talk to you all about, really digging in to AI. Keep it dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org, your source for political revolution. There in radio land, y'all are listening to Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So this next one is a topic that's been on my mind, and I thought, especially as a lot of you students are gearing up to start fall semester in a couple weeks here, it's a good time to talk a little bit about AI. And again, we've talked about it on the show before. Quick recap: it's terrible. Again, it uses a horrible amount of resources, too much fresh water. It is an absolute carbon sink. Opposite of a carbon sink, I should say. It is going to hypercharge climate change. Again, one of the biggest misconceptions about AI, we have tools like ChatGPT, which again is a language model, and it is a predictive model that basically predicts the flow of a conversation. A lot of people treat it like a search engine, which can lead to tremendous problems because a language model will, quote unquote, hallucinate. They will make things up. They will tell you, it's programmed to tell you what you want to hear. And a lot of times the information is not accurate because, again, it's programmed to predict how a conversation is going to flow. It's not programmed like a search engine to find you information that you are asking for. And that big misnomer is leading to a lot of chaos in academia. And I gotta tell you, if any of y'all are thinking about using ChatGPT to cheat on your stuff, like, y'all, come on, it's, or worse. I don't know, my niece who's in her early 20s is talking about they use ChatGPT to write their text messages. And I know I'm gonna sound like a cranky old man. Do it yourself. These are valuable skills you need to learn as a young person, whether it's how to socialize with your peers or how to write a term paper. And it's the equivalent of, taking the elevator. It's the mental equivalent of taking the elevator when you could take the stairs. You're letting your brain rot, basically. And I wanted to again talk about some of the more, kind of a more anti-capitalist analysis of AI, because that's the name of the game here on Media Cyphers. And there's this great article from Truthout that breaks down a lot of these in great detail. AI hype is the product and everyone's buying it. This is by Emily Bender and Alex Hanna. It's published on August 16th. As long as there's been research on AI, there's been AI hype. And the most commonly told narrative about the research field's development, mathematician John McCarthy and computer scientist Marvin Minsky organized a summer-long workshop in 1956 at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, to discuss a set of methods around thinking machines. The terms artificial intelligence is attributed to McCarthy, who was trying to find a name suitable for a workshop that concerned a diverse set of existing knowledge communities. He also was trying to find a way to exclude Norbert Wiener, the pioneer of approximate field cybernetics, a field that has to do with communication and control of machines due to personal differences. The way the origin story is told, Minsky and McCarthy convened the 2-month working group at Dartmouth, consisting of a group of 10 mathematicians, physicists, and engineers, which would make a significant advance in this area of research. Just as it is today, the term artificial intelligence did not have much coherence. It did include something similar to today's neural networks, but also covered topics that included automatic computers and human-computer language interfaces, what we would today consider to be programming languages. Fundamentally, the forerunners of this new field were concerned with translating dynamics of power and control into machine-readable formulations. McCarthy, Minsky, Herbert Simon, a political scientist, economist, computer scientist, and eventual Nobel laureate, and Frank Rosenblatt, one of the originators of the neural network metaphor, were concerned with developing tools that could be used for the guidance of administrative and ultimately military systems. In an environment where the battle for American supremacy in the Cold War was being fought on all fronts, military, technological, engineering, and ideological, these men sought to gain favor and funding in the eyes of a defense apparatus trying to edge out the Soviets. They relied on huge claims with little to no empirical support, bad citation practices, and moving goalposts to justify their projects, which found purchase in Cold War America. These are the same set of practices that we see from today's AI boosters, although they are now primarily chasing market valuations in addition to government defense contracts. The first move in the original AI hype playbook was foregrounding the fight with the Soviets. The second was to argue that computers were likely to match human capabilities by arguing that humans weren't really all that complex. In 1956, Minsky claimed that in an influential paper that human beings are instances of certain kinds of very complicated machines. If that were indeed the case, we could use more controllable electronic circuits in place of people in military and industrial contexts. In the late 60s, Joseph Weizenbaum, a German immigrant, professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and contemporary of Minsky, was alarmed by how quickly people attributed agency to automated systems. Weizenbaum developed a chatbot called Eliza, named for the working-class character in Bernard Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion, which learns to mimic upper-class speech. Eliza was designed to carry on a conversation in the style of a Rogerian psychotherapist. That is, the program primarily repeated what its users said, reframing their thoughts into questions. Weizenbaum used this form for Eliza not because he thought it would be useful as a therapist, but rather because it was a convenient setup for the chatbot. This kind of psychotherapy is one of the few conversational situations where it wouldn't matter if the machine didn't have access to other data about the world. Despite its grave limitations, computer scientists used Eliza to celebrate how thoroughly computers could replace human labor and heralded the entry into the artificial intelligence age. A shocked Weizenbaum spent the rest of his life as a critic of AI, knowing that humans were not meat machines, while Minsky went on to found MIT's AI laboratory and rake in funding from the Pentagon unhindered. The murky, unethical funding networks through unfettered weapons manufacturing then, and with the addition of ballooning speculative venture capital investments now, around AI continue to this day. So does the drawing of false equivalences between the human brain and the calculating capabilities of machines. Claiming such false equivalences inspire awe, which, it turns out, can be used to reel in boatloads of money from investors whipped into a FOMO frenzy. When we say boatloads, think mega yachts. In January 2023, Microsoft announced that it intended to invest $10 billion in OpenAI. This after Mustafa Suleyman, former CEO of DeepMind, made CEO of Microsoft AI in March 24, and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman received a cool $1.3 billion from Microsoft and chipmaker NVIDIA in a funding round to their young startup Inflection.ai. OpenAI alums co-founded Anthropic, a company solely focused on creating generative AI tools, and received $580 million in an investment round led by crypto scammer Sam Bankman-Fried. These startups and a slew of others have been chasing a gold mine of investment from venture capitalists and big tech companies, frequently without any clear path to robust monetization. By the second quarter of 2024, venture capital was dedicating $27.1 billion, or nearly half of their quarterly investments, to AI and machine learning companies. The incentives to ride the AI hype train are clear and widespread. Dress something up as AI and investments flow. But both the technologies and the hype around them are causing harm in the here and now. There are applications of machine learning that are well-scoped, well-tested, and involve appropriate training data, such as they deserve their place among the tools we use on a regular basis. These include such everyday things as spell checkers, no longer simply dictionary lookups, but able to flag real words used incorrectly, and other more specialized technologies like image processing, used by radiologists to determine which parts of a scan or X-ray require the most scrutiny. But in the cacophony of marketing and startup pitches, these sensible use cases are swamped by promises of machines that can effectively do magic, leading users to rely on them for information, decision-making, or cost savings, often to their detriment or to the detriment of others. And it's kind of looping back to some of what I was prefacing this article with at the beginning. An investor interest pushes AI hype to new heights. Tech boosters have been promoting AI solutions in nearly every domain of human activity. We're told that AI can shore up threadbare spots in social services, providing medical care and therapy to those who aren't fortunate enough to have good access to health care, education to those who don't live in a wealthy school district, and legal services for people who can't afford a licensed attorney. We're told that AI will provide individualized versions of all of these things, flexibly meeting user needs. We're told that AI will democratize creative activity by allowing anyone to become an artist. Which, by the way, writing a prompt into a text bar does not make you an artist. I mean, it's just you know, again, art is in the eye of the beholder. It's funny, when I was going to school here, I took a class called Philosophy of Art, and one of the big questions is like, you know, what is art? Like, you know, and I remember in my cheeky way, like, okay, I led a whole discussion. It's like, okay, I've changed the name of the class to Philosophy of Fart. I have made a fart joke. Is that art? And I did argue there was some, you know, again, very childish art to be had in calling it Philosophy of Fart. But I would argue there's more artistic merit in leading a goofy conversation about farts than there is in creating AI-generated slop. But maybe I'm just an elder millennial. What do I know? Anyway. We're told that AI is on the verge of doing science for us, finally providing us with answers to urgent problems, from medical breakthroughs like discovering a cure to cancer, to the climate crisis, discovering a solution for global warming. We already know the answer. Stop pumping CO2 to the atmosphere and probably have to overthrow capitalism, but that's so hard. Oh, let the AI do it. Anyway. Self-driving cars are perpetually just around the corner. Watch out, that means they're about to run into you. Which, by the way, it's not very common here in Michigan. In places where they have been rolled out, like LA, there has been a lot of instances of self-driving cars driving people like off the road or driving into people. And the technology is not there yet, but they just, again, it's the capitalist drive to roll this stuff out as quickly as possible so they can start raking in the money. As you may surmise from our snarky tone, these solutions are by and large AI hype. There are myriad cases in which AI solutions have been posed but fall short of their stated goals. In 2017, a Palestinian man was arrested by Israeli authorities over a Facebook post in which he posed next to a bulldozer with the caption in Arabic of "Good morning." Facebook's machine translation software rendered that as "hurt them" in English and "attack them" in Hebrew. And the Israeli authorities just took that at face value, never checking with any Arabic speakers to see if it was correct. Machine translation has also become a weak stopgap in other critical situations, such as in handling asylum cases. Here, the problem to solve is one of communication between people fleeing violence in their home countries and immigration officials. Machine translation systems, which can work well in cases like translating newspapers written in standard varieties of a handful of dominant languages, can fail drastically in translating asylum claims written or spoken in minority languages or dialects. In August 2020, thousands of British students unable to take their A-level exams due to the COVID-19 pandemic received grades calculated based on an algorithm that took as input, among other things, the grades that other students in their schools received in previous years. After massive public outcry in which hundreds of students gathered outside the Prime Minister's residence at Downing Street in London chanting "F the algorithm," the grades were retracted and replaced with grades based on teachers' assessment of student work. In May 2023, Jared Mumm, a professor at Texas A&M, suspected his students of cheating by using ChatGPT to write their final essays. So he input the essays into ChatGPT and asked it whether it wrote them. After reading ChatGPT's affirmative output, he sent the whole class incomplete grades, and some seniors were temporarily denied their diplomas. On our roads, and I was just mentioning this, promises of self-driving cars have led to death and destruction. A Tesla employee died after engaging in so-called self-driving mode in his Tesla Model 3, which ran off the road. A few months later, on Thanksgiving Day 2022, Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced the availability of Tesla's full self-driving mode. Hours later, it was involved in an 8-car pileup on the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. In 2023, lawyer Stephen A. Schwartz, representing a plaintiff in a lawsuit against an airline, submitted a legal brief citing legal precedents that he found by asking ChatGPT. When the lawyers defending the airline said they couldn't find some of the cases cited, the judge asked Schwartz to submit them. He submitted excerpts rather than the traditional full opinions. Ultimately, Schwartz had to own up to having trusted the output of ChatGPT to be accurate, and his co-counsel were sanctioned and fined by the court. In November 2022, Meta released Galactica, a large language model trained on scientific text and promoted to be able to summarize academic papers, solve math problems, generate wiki articles, write scientific code, annotate molecules and proteins, and more. The demo stayed up for all of 3 days, while the worldwide science community traded examples of how it output pure fabrications, including fake citations, and could easily be prompted into outputting toxic content relayed in academic-looking prose. What all of these stories have in common is that someone oversold an automated system, people use it based on what they were told it could do, and then they or others got hurt. Not all stories of AI hype fit this mold, but for those that don't, it's largely the case that the harm is either diffuse or undocumented. Sometimes people are able to resist AI hype, think through the possible harms, and choose a different path. And what brings us to our goal in writing this book, preventing the harm from AI hype. When people can spot AI hype, they make better decisions about how and when to use automation, and are in better position to advocate for policies that constrain the use of automation by others. And by the way, just to specify, that is these authors, if you are really interested in this topic and a deeper discussion of the issues around AI, Emily Bender and Alex Hanna are coming out with a book called The AI Con, How to Fight Big Tech's Hype and Create the Future We Want. We'll link to this article and that book in the show notes. I'm pretty interested. I might pick it up. And again, that was from Truthout, published on August 16th. All right, everybody, we're going to take another quick little break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org, joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing this afternoon?
Oh, man, you know me. Just working on my lunch break.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we will be, by the way, I know we say this every week, but we are going to try to start recording, and once we actually do it, we'll tell y'all a little bit more about what that entails, but We do have some exciting stuff.
Shout out to Michigan Transformation Collective. They're the ones who are letting us or collaborating with us to do some more work, to do some more podcast work.
Yeah.
So I just want to shout them out because there's a lot of good work going on in Michigan when it comes to curbing community violence. They are definitely doing their work. Quick plug before we go anywhere else, before we do anything else. If you are not busy this Saturday, between 4:30, right, between 4:30 and 7 o'clock, Bernie Sanders and special guest Abdul Al-Saeed will be here at Miller Auditorium. You need to register, you need to get your tickets. It's the Fight the Oligarchy tour with the progressive that should have became our governor. But since he's not going to be our governor, we should definitely get him to replace Gary Peters. So yes,
we have to deal with Alyssa Slotkin, the Democratic Party's favorite centrist. I think we need a counterbalance.
Absolutely, like unequivocally.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
I will, of course, ironically, or maybe not ironically, I'm going to be at work, but Lawrence is going to be there reporting live on the scene. So.
I'm gonna be in the building. I'm in the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will be there. I've met Abdul Al-Sayed when he ran for Congress before, when he was here in Michigan. His book on Medicare for All is so good. It's absolutely good. Please go read it. It's in the public library. Bernie obviously has a bunch of books, and when it comes to us talking about social democracy or democratic socialism, or just the ideas on how to redistribute equality and equity back to working class people, this is the type of people that we talk about. They are going to be in the building. They will be here. Please. Go see it. Come see it.
All right. So yeah, there's that coming up this weekend. And so I wanted to get right into it. I know we have limited time when we got you on your lunch break. So what did you want to hit on first, Lawrence?
Okay. Something that I didn't get a chance to hit on before, and I feel bad for it because normally this would be a quick hit. But this deserves a bit of a deep dive. Everything that's going on with the WNBA. If you haven't been paying attention, the WNBA has been in a lot of controversy over the last few weeks. You had the All-Star game that was actually really good. The whole thing with Gorilla being arrested the day before her performance there, which is a whole conversation within itself, that she calls the police because she got robbed and then the police arrest her. That's a whole conversation. To the players wanting equity, wanting to get paid more. And recently you've had multiple idiots go to a WNBA game and throw sex toys at the players while they're playing. Now, I want to remind you that we've had a number of conversations about trans athletes in school and how we need to protect women's sports, and how we've had right-wingers all say these things. But when it came to those players wanting to fight for equity or wanting to fight for better pay because they're producing the revenue, none of those people stood with the players. And as a matter of fact, the White House retweeted a meme of Donald Trump throwing sex toys at the WNBA players,
Well,
right?
that's not super
So,
surprising.
Look at how the media has
Yeah.
covered when the players are demanding. And because again, we constantly talk about media literacy and media analysis. Look at how the media has been choosing to cover the players when they were trying to fight for equal pay, and when there's scandals like sex toys being thrown at them, and crypto betting markets betting on the next dildo and the color of that sex toy when it's being thrown at the players.
Do you
So
know,
before
was this misogynistic trolling, was this a direct response to them demanding equal pay, or was this a separate incident?
so it was a thing that initially, from my understanding, from my reading, and there's been a number of news articles covering it. Initially, it was a misogynistic idea of someone being an idiot doing it. And then the crypto betting markets was like, hey, what's the next sex toy going to be thrown at the games? And they made it into a coin, an actual Bitcoin. So people are making profit off of doing this trolling to the player, which now takes away from the fact that it takes away from the actual thing that we should be talking about. So let's go to the real things that should be talked about. The WNBA was bought by the NBA, which originally the WNBA was not making money. It wasn't making net profit, even though women's basketball is an international thing, women's Olympics and things of that nature. The WNBA made around $10 billion last year. They made so much money that they are expanding the roster of teams. They are expanding it by between 4 and 6 teams are going to be added to the current WNBA roster. And the reason why I'm saying that is, what are they paying the WNBA players? Your average WNBA player makes yearly around $70,000 to $80,000, which means a person working at UPS makes more than a WNBA player. So you see that the WNBA is growing because you have the conflict between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all that controversy. Very much Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. You see that they're getting more attention because they're asking for more revenue sharing. Now, there's some issues between how the WNBA has set up its contracts, but to say that the WNBA is not profiting off of the labor and sweat equity of these players would be lying to us. And also, the players are not asking for the same price as the average NBA player. The average NBA player makes around $8 million. They're not asking for that. They're just asking for a better cut. And I want to reiterate, and the reason why I want to bring this up, because we forget that one of the WNBA players, All-Stars, was arrested in Russia, right? Because she was arrested in Russia because when she went and played overseas, they paid her more. In America, she was making $250,000. In Russia, they gave her 1.5.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
women's basketball is uniquely undervalued in the United States. I think a lot of people don't really know that fact, or just, yeah.
Yeah. So if WNBA and its new deal is around $200 million per year, and this is in their new deal going into 2026, and they had new media rights for the next 11 years. It's around $2.2 billion going into 2026, right? This is approximately what's going on. So it's not like you can't pay these players more money. Also, these players, you would not have an industry if these players do not play. And also, what are you saying to female hoopers who are in college or in high school who want to be in the WNBA and realizing that they could make more money being an elementary school PE teacher than being a pro athlete. Now, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being a teacher. I'm just saying that since these athletes are making that product or making that money for that industry that is now booming, they should be a part of that revenue sharing.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And also the people, and also that's the main point of this conversation. The other point is, for all the people who are saying that we need to protect women's sport, if you're not speaking out against these idiots who are using cryptocurrency gambling to then sexually harass women in the workplace, you don't care about women's sports. And also, to the guys who think this is cool, bro, think about the series of events that you had to get to this conclusion. You bought a ticket at a WNBA game. Before you did that, you went to a sex store. You went to a sex store and got a sex toy. You then took that thing that you should be using with a partner to a WNBA game just so you could throw it at some women who could probably dunk on you. Like, come on.
More moderate folks ask me, Andy, why do you want to abolish capitalism? There, Exhibit A. There you go. That's just
like, and they're doing it to make money on the back end for betting that it was the right color and right toy. Like, it's ridiculous.
If you're listening on the radio, you probably can't see the array of grossed out faces I'm making, but just to assure you, I am.
Like, it is one of the dumbest things recently in America that's been happening. It's not even the most dumb thing that's been happening in America, but it perfectly encapsulates when we talk about distractions in the media of what we should be talking about, which is players getting paid their equity in a product that they are producing. And the majority of the time when people are talking about, when they talk about the WNBA recently, as is how these women are going to be sexually harassed next.
Yeah.
And that's it's ridiculous. But that's partly my story. The other part, that there are a couple of things I want to talk about. Before we go there, did you have anything to say about that story?
I think I just said it. Like, I've been following this a little bit, and yeah, just the confluence of misogyny. And again, like, I think I really just want to underscore, as you mentioned, these players have a much bigger international profile than they do here, and it's kind of an example of, like, their value is being undercut by what is essentially just like a lot of misogynoir, and this whole crazy dildo thing just really underscores it. I can't believe we're talking about this on the radio.
You would not see. You're not. Again, they're trying to ban bags from customers going into the games, and also you will never ever see that same thing being done at an NBA game. You're not going to see the same thing being done at a football game. You're not going to see the same thing being done at a baseball
People throwing flashlights onto the court and stuff like that.
Right. Blow up dolls. Right. No, that's never right. There's a particular reason why it's being done through the WNBA. It's not even being done on tennis courts. You haven't seen it being done. That wasn't being done since Serena Williams, but there was other stuff that's going on there. But anyway, the two stories that I truly want to talk about while I have time is the protest in DC. I want to shout out to people in DC and in New York and in Chicago and people mobilizing, trying to fight back against fascism. I just had a meeting last week. Shout out to my boy Jacob, our friend Jacob. They had a whole thing at K College about fighting back against fascism. And there's organizers across the country who is not standing up to this, that when they see these mass Gestapo brown shirts, when you see these modern day brown shirts attacking citizens, that they are filming it, they are staying aware. They are organizing funds to get people out of detention centers and things of that nature.
I've seen them sharing neighborhood information. Here's where to avoid checkpoints, because they've been setting checkpoints up all around. And yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week. I think it was after you left, but yeah, last week we just reported this is something Trump is about to do. And we weren't sure. It's what is this actually going to look like? Because it's not like LA, where the whole goal is to kidnap immigrants. I mean, that's one of the goals in Washington. And what we've really seen is an attempt to kind of just harass working class DC residents and kidnap immigrants, but also particularly houseless people. There's been a huge uptick in just them bulldozing encampments. And something that was very chilling I heard from a colleague in DC is typically around Union Station there are a lot of houseless residents who hang out there during the day, and it was like a ghost town. Did not see any, and that's where are they going? Where are they being put? That is an open and alarming question right now.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. It's one of those things where you have, when we saw the president do that order in DC and taking over DC with National Guards and things of that nature, it's gross. It was absolutely gross, and I was happy to see multiple people in the media space call out that this is fascism. That's what that is. There's no reason that DC is at a 30-year low when it comes to crime. So when you see people who are on the left or on the right or center pushing crime narratives, when crime since COVID has gone down, right? Even though inflation and other things have gone up, there was no reason to deploy the National Guard into DC. It was just an overreach of power. It was fascist power taking over a city for no reason. Yeah. And you saw what happened. These masked thugs then black-bagged and was kidnapping and harassing delivery drivers.
Yeah. Coming up to people on their porch and telling them they can't drink or smoke on their own private property, which, by the way, according to DC law, you absolutely can.
Right. So, and this is, I'm so glad you said that, because this also goes back to what happened to, we need our guns to fight back against a tyrannical government. Oh. What happened to those right wingers? The tyrannical government telling you that you cannot smoke or drink on your own property. I can't just chill out. I can chill out on my own property. Also, there's been multiple stories, and the reason why I'm going to bring this up because there's been multiple stories of people dressing up as government officials, but sexually assaulting women, sexually assaulting people, robbing people. There's a reason why local law enforcement normally does not wear a mask. Why? Because these are public servants that's supposed to be protecting and serving the public good. You need to be able to see that person and have that human interaction. Otherwise, this turns into RoboCop really fast. And RoboCop is not what we want.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because even a lot of police veterans, and again, we've got a lot of criticisms about police and how it's all that stuff, but a tool of capitalism. But a lot of police are really irritated at ICE and their tactics, because not only does it it breaks the public trust and all that stuff, but the main reason you want police to be identifiable is again to not only be accountable to themselves but to the community, because anybody can just get a costume off of Amazon and pretend to be a cop if you do not have a precedent where everybody is supposed to be identifiable and have their faces uncovered. There's been a lot of complaints too about,
and there's been multiple stories of places being robbed, people being sexually assaulted and being raped, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse because we saw what happened years ago under the original 45 administration, where you had the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers who were joining ICE to do legalized slave catching, or just to police the border, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But now they went from doing that at the southern border with undocumented human beings to now doing that to regular citizens. And what you think is going to happen if you are a masked person running into an American's home and not identifying yourself as law enforcement? Mm-hmm. What do you think people are going to do? We saw what happened with Breonna Taylor.
Yep.
When what happened?
No, not great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, what happened? Her man grabbed a gun and got the busing back. That's one person with a gun. We live in a country drowning in them. If you think people are not going to be firing back when you don't identify yourself, and you're a masked person, you are insane. You are asking for people to get shot.
And part of it is I'm kind of shocked we haven't had an incident like this happen yet. Because again, yeah, like you said, there are more guns per person in this country than anywhere else on the planet, and everybody's very well versed in castle doctrine. And there's an incredible amount of restraint that people are exercising. And again, people don't want to catch consequences of getting murdered by police or going to jail, that kind of stuff. But yeah, somebody breaks in the home and it breaks into your house in the middle of the night, and they don't show a warrant and they're in a mask. Like, one would just have to assume they are goons posing as police.
I don't like that. Let me be on the record. Yeah. I am against citizens having. I'm not against citizens having guns. I am for the Second Amendment. I am for regulated, common sense gun laws. I am for common sense gun laws for your average American. With that also being said, if I have a gun at the house and some random person with a mask who does not identify themselves as authority runs into my house, I will be defending myself. That is I feel like the most common thought in America, and we've seen that happen. I'm surprised that it, like you said, I'm surprised it hasn't happened before, but tick, 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 it's coming.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually, he messaged me and he's like, man, this reminds me so much of a V for Vendetta, and like the camps they're setting up are just like the camps in the movie. And actually, it's funny because weird serendipity, I was thinking about that movie recently too, but the scene that came to my mind when I was thinking about this DC stuff, think about why they're being sent out to DC was because Big Balls got beat up by a couple of teenagers, which is embarrassing. But they specifically talked about how they are going to target juvenile crime. And if you remember the movie V for Vendetta, the thing that sets off the uprising, it is not because V goes on TV and does a big flowery speech. It's because some government goon accidentally murders a kid. And I think we are precipitously close to something like that sort of flashpoint event happening. And honestly, if something like that happened in DC, all bets are off. People are, 2020 is the only thing I can think of, and it would probably be that times some number. Yeah.
Like, I am more afraid of. I am more afraid of Americans. I'm more afraid that if we do not check those who are using this, if ICE and people who are employing the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and these alt-right groups into Border Patrol and into ICE and these things, if they're not being checked, they're going to get people hurt.
Yep.
And yes, the government has a monopoly on violence.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
The government has a monopoly on violence, and it's going to just lead to average civilians getting hurt, and it's not okay. But I'm glad that people are videotaping. They are filming these people saying things like liberals already ruined this country. They're calling them Nazis and calling them fascists because what they're doing is fascist. So I support all of that. We need to make sure that these people are documented doing what they're doing and understanding that what they're doing is not lawful. What they're doing is breaking humanitarian law, breaking our constitutional rights, but breaking international law. Like, it's not okay.
Yeah, and
like those people who are a part of that should be going to the Hague.
Yeah, just to clarify too, when I say there might be a huge uprising in DC in response to like a Flashpoint event, that isn't something like I hope that happens. No, it would be terrible because we don't
want this to happen.
The Trump administration wants a situation where people are so mad that they pour out something that would give them an excuse to because again, make no mistake, the fascists are in the house, and if they got an excuse to unload American payload on people that they hate, they will absolutely take it. And again, but this is coming from I differ on some of the stuff. The old Marx quote: "Under no pretext should the arms of the working class be taken away." But keep in mind, even though the United States is, maybe the has the most well-armed working class of any country, it's also incredibly disorganized. And if a bunch of people just came out, no pun intended, half-cocked against the American military, it would be a slaughter. And I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the first people in the first communities that are going to be getting cracked down on if that happens is brown and black and
absolutely
for communities. Mm-hmm. Communities that cannot fight back. We saw a lot of this same tactics and ideology happen in Ferguson. If you remember the Ferguson protests during Black Lives Matter, they occupied the city like it was Gaza. It was the same taxes that you see in Gaza.
There's literally I can't remember his name, but there was a Republican representative went on, I think it was Newsmax or something. It was talking about liquidating neighborhoods in DC. It's basically talking like that is the imperial boomerang when you have Republicans talking about minority majority neighborhoods and clearing them out like Gaza. That is the imperial boomerang coming back to hit us all in the butt.
We are not. And I'm not trying to get hit in the back of the head. But
no.
Yeah. So before I gotta get off, because I only got like 4 more minutes, and then I gotta get back. I gotta get back to work. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this quick hit. So we all know that PBS has been defunded because of 47.
Most likely because of a skit Sesame Street did in the 90s making fun of him. I don't want to point that. Look it up, starring Joe Pesci as Donald Grump. He's that petty. That is probably why he went after PBS. But go ahead.
If that is the case, that man's pettiness is over 9,000. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, it is impossible. So the thing that people are not are talking about, the things that I've been seeing in articles, is what are they going to place PBS with? If you don't know, Prager, as in Prager, the mega donor who created the YouTube PragerU, as in Prager University, has a bunch of cartoons that were tailored towards children, that whitewashed history, that was saying slavery was okay, that was trying to normalize and or erase actual Black history. It is horrifying if you watch some of those cartoons. They are talking about replacing PBS with right-wing propaganda cartoons, and it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not close. It is not okay. There have been a number of YouTube channels that have went through and debunked those claims one by one.
They're one of the most notorious outlets for right-wing misinformation. Again, it's targeted primarily towards like school children. There's already like I think it's between 8 and 10, conservative majority states that are already putting PragerU stuff in their curriculum. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Michigan's one of those states. Michigan is, and it is horrifying. That type of garbage is the reason why we have Andrew Tate's and things of that nature. It's that type of misinformation. There are a number of YouTube channels that are dedicated to debunking PragerU. There's a whole playlist by Scutters, Scuter, where they have a whole playlist of how PragerU lies to you, of the nonsense that it does. And they are Sean and other essayists on YouTube, from the BreadTube. This is the good side of BreadTube, because BreadTube can sometimes be hit or miss. Big Joel, shout out to Philosophy Tube, shout out to a bunch of different folks. There are a number of folks that are out here doing the Lord's work when it comes to debunking PragerU's garbage, just outright and utter lies. We also need to jump on that train a little bit. I feel like we are going to have to start doing it more on our channel.
Yeah, we've talked about PragerU before, but again, they've gone from like a fringe outlet to something that is going to be basically the ministry of disinformation. This also comes at a time when Donald Trump, by executive order, is trying to control what kind of history is taught places like the Smithsonian. Again, it goes back to who controls the past controls the future. Conservatives are very aware of this. That's why they've gone after critical race theory. That's why they've gone after, quote unquote, DEI in education. Well, go ahead and get your. I have a point on that, but I want to make sure you can kind of speak on that.
No. I'm just saying that it's one of those things where we as a public are spending a lot of time getting our information online. We're not using normal news sources. So because of that, because there are online sources who are trying to tell you that they are being objective, that they are lying to you. It is our job, who do this as political junkies or just who care about education, to fight back against that disinformation as strongly and as factually as we can. But I truly have to go.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Just to say to that point, I think it is, and have a great day, Lawrence. We'll see you soon. Kind of just jumping off that point, the political education is key, and the fascists realize that. They realize how powerful it is. We talked a little bit about, Bernie Sanders is going to be in town on Saturday. For some of the young folks who don't remember, the man didn't invent American socialism overnight, and he certainly didn't invent American capitalism. There has been an upsurge in underground political education for years, probably most poignantly going back to the Occupy movement in 2011. And it has created, again, chicken and the egg thing. Bernie didn't create this resurgence of, he really did remind people about socialism, but this political education is what allowed a democratic socialist to be competitive in a U.S. election. And I say that to say this: the Republicans and the conservatives and the fascists, they all see this, and they are desperate to pull the brakes and send the train going in reverse. because they realize that no amount of ICE goons or any other thing is going to be worth much if people are politically educated. This is an idea that has a long history. You had, again, Ronald Reagan's economic advisor saying we can't have a well-educated proletariat. That's dynamite. It's explosive. And especially, for all its flaws, the internet has been able to democratize information in a way that the ruling class has not been able to control. Now, they're definitely trying to right now, between AI and the way a lot of these tech companies are getting in line with the fascists. But we have the U.S. working class has had a unique opportunity, I'd say, especially in the last 20 years, to through the back door, get really politically educated. And the fascists want to put a stop to that. Case in point, 2020. The uprisings of 2020 was an example. And this is really what made all the fascists poop their pants. When you had people out in the street all over the country, especially white kids out in the street standing for black lives, it showed a level of historical understanding and empathy with black people that the fascists just couldn't stomach. Their future is impossible if their children have empathy for others. And even after the Black Lives Matter uprising 2020 faded a little bit into the background, you had what has happened in Gaza in the last several years. And again, people who, again, this is not going with the fascist script. People, the young Americans are just supposed to be loyal to Israel. Why are all of our kids going to college and shouting "Free Palestine"? This is not the script they want to see. So this effort to dismantle things like PBS and teach propaganda at the Smithsonian and eliminate critical race theory and all of these other things is an attempt by the U.S. ruling class to turn back the clock and teach people nothing but this Disneyfied version of American history where Americans are always right and just and, pledge your allegiance to Israel and all the other corrupt governments the U.S. supports and don't ask questions. Now, is the genie already out of the bottle? I would like to think so. And I don't think any amount of repression or tinkering with the education system is going to prevent that. But we can't take anything for granted because it would not be impossible for the U.S. government to force us back into like a dark age of information where people are severely miseducated about the truth of American history and the American present. All right, so with that, we're going to take another quick little break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers podcast. You can find that on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. I think we're going to close the show a little bit early, but before we do, I wanted to talk about this article from Truthout, Sharon Zhang, an update about some of the news going on in regards to Gaza and just some more evil stuff coming out of the U.S. government. Trump administration halts visas for Gazans as children arrive for medical care. Published on August 18th. That was yesterday. The State Department announced this weekend that it is suspending visitor visas for Palestinians from Gaza to enter the U.S. after right-wingers raged about children entering the country to receive medical care, often for injuries caused by Israel with the U.S.'s backing. All visitor visas for individuals from Gaza are being stopped while we conduct a full and thorough review of the process and procedures used to issue a small number of temporary medical humanitarian visas in recent days, the State Department said on Twitter. The announcement came after right-wing influencer Laura Loomer complained about the program, specifically highlighting work by the nonprofit organization Heal Palestine. She asserted on Twitter that the U.S. should not be accepting any refugees from Palestine, even though Heal Palestine only arranges temporary visas for children to receive medical care. Loomer posted a video showing young children being cheered by police waving Palestinian flags as they arrive at San Francisco's airport with their families. Loomer said that the video was exclusive and that she obtained video footage for her report. Of children being treated for severe and intense injuries caused by U.S.-bought bombs. Yeah, but how do these? I just don't understand how some of these people even think. It's like, God. Anyway, for a report, the video was originally posted online on Heal Palestine's Instagram account. So again, that's misinformation again. She's like, this is exclusive footage I captured. No, it's from Heal Palestine's Instagram. Received over 500,000 likes. Still, Loomer claimed that the video was evidence of the Trump administration going back on its pledge to not accept Palestinian refugees. This is a lie that nonetheless took hold on the right. Heal Palestine condemned the State Department's decision in a statement and emphasized that it is not bringing children over as part of a refugee resettlement program. Heal Palestine is an American humanitarian nonprofit organization delivering urgent aid and medical care to children in Palestine, including sponsoring and bringing severely injured children to the U.S. on temporary visas for essential medical treatment not available at home. After their treatment is complete, the children and any accompanying family members return to the Middle East, the group said. Indeed, medical evacuation is the last hope for an estimated 11,000 Palestinians in Gaza, including 4,500 children who require it. Medicine Sans Frontiers has estimated. With Israel's systematic destruction of Gaza's health system and decades of medical blockades by Israeli occupation, thousands in Gaza have no treatment options within the Strip for diseases like cancer or treatment for severe injuries caused by Israeli bombings. Heal Palestine has brought 63 injured children aged 6 to 15 years old from Gaza to the U.S. for treatment, with 148 evacuees total, according to the group. These are children who have lost their limbs or suffered severe burns, likely as a result of Israeli attacks, while others have chronic conditions. All are severely malnourished, the group said. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the visa suspensions in an interview with CBS on Sunday, accusing the groups helping Palestinians acquire visas of being affiliated with Hamas. Again, everything's Hamas with these people. Of course, he provided no evidence for that assertion. First of all, it's not just kids. It's a bunch of adults are accompanying them, he said, likely referring to the children's family members. Advocates for Palestinian rights have said that the State Department's decision is cruel. Blocking Palestinian children injured by American weapons from coming to America for medical treatment is the latest sign that the intentional cruelty of President Trump's Israel First administration knows no bounds, said Nihad Awad, the Council on American Islamic Relations National Executive Director. It is also deeply ironic that the Trump administration would ban Palestinian children seeking treatment while rolling out the red carpet for racists and indicted war criminals from the Israeli government, Awad went on. Humanitarian groups have pleaded with international partners to welcome Palestinians for treatment as Israel has denied the vast majority of requests for medical evacuations, no matter how dire the cases. Most countries are refusing to allow Palestinians to evacuate, MSF says, while Israel has imposed a number of arbitrary restrictions on approving evacuations. We are looking for countries, and we really want them to open their doors to accept more and more cases because these patients are dying inside Gaza, said Hani Isleem, the group's project coordinator for medical evacuations in Gaza. France was one of those countries, but earlier this month also froze its program to allow Palestinians to flee Gaza amid the genocide after a Palestinian student was suspended from her university due to allegations that she made anti-Semitic posts online. You can find that at Truthout. Trump admin halts visas for Gazans as children arrive for medical care. It's only 1:37, so I have one more article I think I'm going to dive into before we break. So this one is from Jacobin, and as a healthcare worker, this article struck me as particularly important. This article was published yesterday, the 18th, and it is about RFK and his goofy Make America Healthy Again initiatives. It's written by Branko Marcetic. MAHA is going to make Americans sicker. The playbook Donald Trump and his allies are using to dismantle the United States and hand it over to the rich and powerful is by now clear. With their words, they'll attack wokeness and censorship, while with their actions, they'll aggressively push a turbocharged form of both. Actually, I don't really know what the article means by this, because it's like the turbocharged form of censorship, but certainly not wokeness. Anyway. They'll shake their fist at the elites with one hand and stuff cash and other favors into their pockets with the other. They'll loudly claim to fight for the working class if it involves picking on groups they hate, but behind closed doors, they'll work to strip workers of their rights and make them poorer. Each time, the tactic is the same. Distract Trump's own base and the U.S. public more generally by loudly proclaiming you're fighting a bunch of terrible things, and while they're looking the other way, do the very thing you're pretending to fight. We're seeing this playbook used again when it comes to the vaunted Make America Healthy Again agenda, led and devised by now Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So far, Trump and his allies have focused overwhelmingly on clamping down on the wacky, non-existent problems that RFK Jr. rails against. RFK Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, is currently using his perch at HHS to launch an assault on vaccines, both those against COVID-19 and more generally against a host of diseases, emboldening Trump allies at the state level to push to further roll back life-saving vaccine requirements. They're also targeting fluoride in drinking water, laying the groundwork to eliminate its recommendation by the federal government as MAGA lawmakers work to ban it in their own states. Now they're also turning their attention to chemtrails, which you might remember are as the thing your older cousin was obsessed with when his house first got dial-up internet. And as such flagrant nonsense, even Trump's Environmental Protection Agency felt the need to clarify it isn't actually real. As idiotic as this all is, it's a campaign rooted in something fundamentally reasonable and legitimate. Suspicion of foreign, possibly toxic chemicals being put into our bodies through the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe, and the desire to have some control over it. But this is what makes the main thrust of Trump's agenda, which RFK Jr. and the rest of the MAGA movement are fully behind, so absurd. Because Trump and his underlings have spent the last 7 months doing almost everything to flood our food, water, and air with all kinds of very real, very horrible pollutants, including numerous cancer-causing chemicals. For instance, Trump's EPA has decided to delay implementing limits on PFAS, or forever chemicals, in America's drinking water, which again, Michiganders, you know we've had a lot of issues with PFAS in the past decade or so. So-called forever chemicals because once you ingest them, they hardly ever break down, but rather simply accumulate in your body while being linked to the development of cancers and other health problems down the line. It says it's doing this in the name of regulatory flexibility, meaning as a favor to the big business polluters who have spent millions lobbying against any clampdown on the chemicals and who Trump staffed his EPA with. Trump and his team are well aware what they're doing to an unsuspecting U.S. public because it was his first administration that got the ball rolling on regulating them in the first place. And it's not just PFAS. In only 2 months, Trump has ended a host of efforts to keep a variety of toxic chemicals out of Americans' bodies, whether by dropping a lawsuit to limit the further emissions of one carcinogen in Louisiana's Cancer Alley, delaying limits on another carcinogen at the behest of medical device firms, or moving to loosen safety screenings for various chemicals and the rules in place to prevent chemical disasters. Trump and his underlings have spent the last 7 months, Those rules exist to avoid unleashing onto American communities hazardous substances like vinyl chloride, a carcinogen that turned East Palestine into a biohazard zone after the 2023 Norfolk Southern train derailment in Ohio, which Trump was happy to use for his campaign fodder. Meanwhile, Trump also has dismantled the agency responsible for researching the impact of chemicals so that if they're found to be dangerous, they can be regulated in the future. Part of the completely pointless cost-cutting drive that dominated the first half of his term. This was eagerly carried out by RFK Jr. in between his public warnings about environmental toxins, just like he said nothing about Trump's rollback of regulations on mercury, which he had once railed against as a private citizen. Under Trump, companies can now flood the country with this kind of poison with only a simple email to the EPA requesting that they be exempted from the rules, which his administration has granted dozens of times already. No wonder the chemical industry is feeling what it calls palpable optimism about Trump's second term. Or look at pesticides. On the campaign trail, Trump spoke about the millions and millions of Americans worried about pesticides in our food and vowed to ensure that everybody will be protected from harmful chemicals, pollutants, and pesticides. But once in the White House, his administration has done the exact opposite. Trump officials have assured the big ag lobby that there will be no coming crackdown on pesticide use, took away $20 million of funding to clean pesticide-contaminated drinking water in California, pushing to end requirements that the states add warning labels to sometimes carcinogenic pesticides, herbicides, and other products sprayed on food, and have actually reapproved the use of a particularly destructive pesticide whose scale of damage to crops and farmland one expert called unprecedented. Meanwhile, get ready for your food to become a lot less healthy. Trump is preparing to cut what RFK Jr. called outdated production standards for more than 50 food products and possibly hundreds more down the line, has eliminated as unnecessary 2 food safety committees involved in combating the rise in foodborne illnesses, and purged 3,500 employees from the Food and Drug Administration, which regulates 80% of the country's food supply and finds significant violations in 1 to 2% of the facilities it inspects every year. To get a sense of how disastrous this could prove, just think back to the scandal early in Joe Biden's first term concerning a shortage of baby formula, one of the products the FDA is meant to regulate. In that instance, a stunning inspection failure led to babies being hospitalized and even dying, and a massive recall of products from one of the 4 companies that controls 90% of the U.S. baby formula industry, causing chaos for millions of parents who suddenly couldn't find the food they needed to feed their hungry kids. There you have Trump and MAHA in a nutshell. If there's a fake health crisis that got its start with urban legends from the early days of the internet, they'll crack down on it quick and hard. If it's the real chemicals and other pollutants that will give you cancer or otherwise poison you, they'll do everything possible to flood your food, water, and air with it. And that was Branko Marcetic from Jacobin. MAHA is going to make Americans sicker. We will link to that in the show notes. All right, everybody, we're going to break a little bit early today. I want to thank y'all for listening. This has been Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online, Media Cyphers on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Thank y'all again for listening. Stay tuned if you're listening on the radio, 2 o'clock, Electropop Therapy with DJ Danger Groove. Everybody else, until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.